Well, hello everyone. It is the 21st of April 2023. I am Dale Delbridge, Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and this is your status chat. And before we get started, I have to warn you, this is a trigger warning, we're going to talk a little bit of news and a little bit of history, and it may be upsetting to some. It's not our goal. Information is our goal, and information is what we strive to give you to make intelligent decisions and have an understanding of that world which we live in. So let's get started. If you like this content, please go to calldale2sell.com, find the tab that says on YouTube, click it, and it'll open up a page of QR codes. There you can use a smartphone to scan and get to the YouTube page, or you can just mouse over and click it on a PC. There you'll be able to subscribe to this little button over here and click the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you when each Friday's blog has been uploaded. Thank you. Alrighty then, now that's out of the way, let me ask you this. And remember, this trigger warning, I don't want to upset anybody, but we're just going to go back in time and look at what happened, and we'll have a little bit of commentary in there. I don't have time to unpack absolutely everything and prove everything that I say is legit and real. So we're just going to have to take it as my opinion that way. Not affiliated with anyone or any other group, any other person on God's green earth, just my opinion, no one else's. Okay? So that should keep everyone happy. And remember, we're going to talk about history and news, and it may be a little upsetting to some people, and I don't want that to happen. So let's look over here at this. What do you know about the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the FHFA? Well, it was created July 30th, 2008. Well, what is that all about? Can you think of anything that happened in 2008 of interest or noteworthy events? Anything? Well, we had too big to fail, and banking collapses, and we had a housing collapse, and we had financial disaster that was years in the making. It took years to get in that bad shape, and they worked up to it. So congratulations or condemnation, whichever you want to see, for that situation in 2008. Well, if we get back to this central question, what is the FHFA? What was it created for? Up to this point, we had a financial collapse created by policy, and what is the result? How do you fix a financial crisis created by government policies? Well, you create more government, and that's exactly what they did in 2008. Now, if I remember right, it was predominantly driven by the Democrat Party, who control Congress, which the lower chamber, the House of Representatives, controls all spending bills, and they put it through. We're going to save it, throw some money at it, we'll print some more, we'll do some stuff to save the housing market and the banks and all of that, right? Well, one of the things that they did in the FHFA that a lot of people don't realize is it was pretty well much, many people consider a Democrat bill, Democrat solution to create more government to fix what was already done. And they set it up so that the president, by law, had no authority to fire the director of the FHFA. No authority to fire him. And that was, I guess, because they were in charge, and they would set up who was going in that seated position, and it would be all happy and fine. And I think that's probably not necessarily an evil thing. But what is the purpose of the FHFA? This is the FHFA's own website. You can see it right here. This is their official page. What is their purpose? Well, according to this, their purpose was to ensure the regulated entities fulfill their mission by operating a safe and sound manner to serve a reliable source of liquidity and funding for the housing finance market through economic cycle. So, the whole purpose of the FHFA and the big expansion of government was to make sure that 2008 never happened again by focusing solely on economic stability, economic background, shoring up, however you want to look at it, the health of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Okay, now what happened? This worked regardless of party up until Biden. And when Biden decided that the current way the FHFA was operating was not to his liking, despite the peaceful transfer of power and groups and people and directors as time went from 2008 till 2020, when the election changed everything. Biden wanted to fire the director and couldn't. Unconstitutional. This is the New York Times, which is the Gray Lady, which is not a particularly conservative publication. And we'll look down, and I want to pay attention to what happens. Let's read this. The government-sponsored mortgage lenders Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were placed into conservatorship during the housing crisis of 2008. This date of this is June. Remember when June is? June, July, May, June. So this is 6 months into 2021. Remember that date. Take a note. Washington, President Biden on Wednesday removed the chief of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, which oversees the mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Acting immediately after the Supreme Court ruled that the president had the authority to dismiss the agency director, because remember, That's the way they wrote the law back in 2008, that the president couldn't fire the director. And it stayed that way until it was inconvenient. Then it became unconstitutional and they threw it out. The director, Mark Calabria, I apologize if I mispronounced his name, who was appointed by President Donald Trump, issued a statement wishing his successor well and noting that he respected the decision of the court and the president's authority to remove them. The White House said late Wednesday that it had designated Sandra L. Thompson. You want to look up this woman, this person, your head of your FHFA, and look into her background, ideologies, and opinions, and what she's going for. The deputy director of the agency as acting chief. Now, I won't go into too much into the Gray Ladies article. We just want to go into this next little portion that we have for you. Because remember, they passed a law, set up so you couldn't fire the director, and it stayed that way until it was a problem for the Biden administration. Then they took it to court, declared it unconstitutional, fired the person, and changed the direction of the agency. So now we have, straight from the FHFA, now what was that month we had before, 6 of 2021? Now this is 2 months later. This is how they were cocked, locked, and ready to go. The FHFA announces inclusion of rental payment history in Fannie Mae's underwriting process. They also extended it to Freddie Mac and do the same thing. They're just going to update. This is an executive branch action. They're going to update Fannie Mae's system. This is the underwriting program, so that it gives them points if they pay their rent on time. It's never been done before. And here's the thing. There is no additional burden either to the borrower or to the lender, which is a darn lie. Because, quite honestly, in this thing they call the scorecard, the FHFA has guidelines that they set out for everybody who actually has a government tradable loan, a FHA government-backed GSE sponsored loan. And if you want to play under the FHFA's GSEs, then you're going to do what the FHFA says you have to. And they write these guidelines that changed dramatically in 2022. So it is a burden for the lender because they have all kind of vague regulations they have to come up with. What does it mean? But what it does is they are taking your past rent payments as credit, in lieu of credit. Okay? And if you didn't pay your rent on time, they're going to ignore not paying your rent on time. So what this is doing, what this policy does, instantly, 2 months after she took over, this increases the number of high-risk loans. Why? Is it because we don't like you or we don't like anything about you? No. It's all based upon the color of grain. The more grain you have, the cheaper your loan, the more we want to give you business because we consider you to be a good risk. So it's all based upon your ability to pay. This circumvents that by putting some other factor in there made specifically to then qualify through the underwriting process people that would not be able to get a loan. Why? Because they don't qualify for it. But 2 months after the lawsuit, the Biden administration put a person in there that just changed the direction of the FHFA, and we started accruing more high-risk loan. And I'm going to skip some intermediate steps because we're running long, but she stepped up more and more. She made it more and more aggressive. Now, when we look at the situation that we have higher interest rates, it's getting harder for people to borrow the money, and as it gets harder for people to borrow money, they're even really expanding out the amount of high-risk loans we're getting because we're starting to push really high. We're sailing awfully close to the wind for a lot of people. So what was the solution? This is Housing Wire. The FHFA hikes fees for high balance and second home loans. Now let me translate that for you. High balance, what is a high balance? Well, it's going to be over a certain amount. Well, if you have just a very small, humble, tiny tumble down like I do, your balance isn't high enough to be high balance. But if you have a grand mansion, that's probably going to be an indicator that if you could get the loan, you're going to have some money and capabilities and financial acumen. Also, the second home loans are for those who have worked hard, and now they may own a second home, a vacation home, a getaway, a rental home, whatever it might be. If they're buying other homes, lake homes, getaways, doesn't matter. Well, then they must be fairly sound and secure. So the FHFA hikes the fees for those people, again, to what? To generate money to pay for the high-risk loans that they are now creating. Upfront fees for high-balance loans will increase between 0.25% and 0.75%, tiered by loan-to-value ratio. For second home loans, the upfront fees will increase between 1.125, that's 1 1/8, and 3.75%. Also tiered by loan-to-value ratio. So what are they doing? Well, they're going after the people who are low risk and have good quality credit, who should be getting a break because they are low risk, and we're taking money from them to pay for high risk loans that perhaps should not have been written. Let's look back at this next point. This is from Fox News. This is today's news. This is what we're getting at. Biden rule will redistribute high risk loan costs to homeowners with good credit. I'm going to let that little visual sit there for a while. This is April 19th. That was 2 days ago? It's now the 21st. So what does that mean? Once again, we started opening up this same pattern we had in previous to 2008, where we were writing bad loans to people who couldn't pay. And we've expanded that now by policy. And to keep the thing afloat, they're playing Robin Hood. They're taking from the rich to give to the poor. So if you happen to be fairly stable in your current stage of life, they're going to charge you more to counteract the risk that they're putting inherent to the system by doing things like giving credit to rents for people who couldn't otherwise qualify, to getting them qualified for a loan when they really wouldn't qualify on their own. Those are high risk by default. Now you add in the inflation and the burden that's putting on people with the high interest rates, and we're increasing an abnormal group of high-risk persons in there. So let's take a look at one thing. Remember when we talked about these dates? When were they? Let's go back one more time. Let me find it. Biden removes in June. We had the public affairs announced then in June, July, August, that they're going to start including rents just as soon as Biden wins that they get elected in 20. They win the court case halfway through 21. 2 months later, they're taking rents in lieu of credit. Now let's look at this. This is from the Home Ownership Affordability Monitor. This is from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. In here I've got it locked and loaded for national versus metro share of income. It's a nice little chart. It shows the pain that we're put into, and our metro area is Nashville, Davidson, Murfreesboro, Franklin, Tennessee. We see that regardless of who was in the power during these years, we see pretty well much we're chucking along normally. When was the last election? 2020. 2020 they were elected, but their hands were tied. The FHFA's hands were tied by the Supreme Court decision. They were untied, which was halfway through 21. Let's look at this. When is this? March. In March, we could have a little bounce. There's April. Okay, we're beginning to go up because we're seeing what's coming through the news cycle, and we have gone up ever since. Now, what has that caused? Well, it's caused us to be above the 30% income threshold level. Hasn't made things better. And now what they're going to do is, let me pull this back up so we can read it together. The Biden rule will redistribute high-risk loan costs to homeowners with good credit. So why is that? Because their goal is to keep the FHFA solvent. And how can you keep it solvent if you're writing loans that shouldn't be written because people don't have credit? Why? Because, of course, you have now given credit to people through the underwriting process, credit for credit worthiness based upon paying of rents, what they should have done anyway, but you're not going to count them if they didn't pay the rent. It's only a one-sided sword. You can only help you, can't hurt you. And that's building in risk to our market. And now to make up for it, what are we going to do? That's it one more time. We're going to redistribute that high risk to people with higher, better credits. We're going to charge them more to pay for those who got loans, who might default. Maybe they won't default, but might default because they really weren't very strong to start with. And this is not their first step. We see that they had raised the rate substantially on first or second homes and high balance loans. So government is there to help. What is it Reagan said? I'm with the government and I'm here to help. So that's it. Let's get into our next segment. Hello, I'm Dale Delbridge of Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If you are currently unrepresented and would like to know how to compare up to 3 properties side by side and room by room, then go over to my new YouTube channel. Call Dale to sell. That's one L and Dale, no spaces. Watch the demo on Real Scout and then call me and we'll set up your exclusive ad-free account today. It's up to you to decide whether that's good or bad, or otherwise I'm not judging that. Let's look at the numbers. Last week, 4/14/23, we had 15,979 in the opportunities. That was up over the previous period. We had 4,140 in the under contract still showing. That also was up in reference to the previous period, but the ratio between them remained the same at 26. This week, for 21/23, we had 16,045, slightly up again, not much. 42.28 in the under contract still showing, also up just a little bit, but not significant. and the ratio remained unchanged at 26%. So that's it. Sorry, I hope I didn't trigger anybody. Not trying to be political, just trying to explain to you what is happening in our world today so that you can make an informed decision on how you want to proceed. That's it. We appreciate you watching. Thank you. Have a great day.